It's cold brew season, and Trade has you covered for the warmer weather months. Sign up for a cold brew subscription and get coffees designed specifically for making cold brew delivered right to your door. But how do you make cold brew at home? Well, for a limited time, you get a Hario cold brewer with your subscription for absolutely free. That's a $30 value. Just pour, fill, and chill and have your own cold brew right at home. Plus, shipping is always free. Go to unitedwedrink.com/trade to start your subscription today. Better coffee is waiting for you with Trade. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, coworkers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour? More like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another new episode of the United We Drink podcast right here on unitedwedrink.com, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever fine podcasts are found. My name is Mike Urevich, and I'm just going to say that tired is my default setting now. I no matter what I try to do, that's just who I am. It's a character trait now. With me, as always, Kevin Abbott, Tim Johnson.
Hello.
Are you guys nearly as tired as me? I mean, I know you don't know how tired I am, but is this just a thing with parenthood now? You're just always tired?
Yes.
Parenthood, age. Yeah. I mean, I only have my daughter 50% of the time, so I can't blame it on her. But I know I've been working like a dog lately, so I'm exhausted.
As I get older, I always compare myself in age of where my dad was in age and what age I was, right? That was a lot of words. I hope it all came out and you understand what I'm saying. But because my dad had me at like
perfectly clear.
Because my dad had me at 22, by the time he was my age, 43, I was an adult, right? And I cannot imagine like going out and playing baseball and stuff like that. Like, it must have been so much. I mean, don't get me wrong, my dad worked very hard, and I know it was still exhausting for him. It's exhausting for anyone to be a parent, but I would it would be so much nicer if I was going out and running around with my son when I was in my early 30s. That would have been a really, really nice luxury to be going out to the baseball field in the heat of South Florida and running around like a crazy person with bad knees and being able to do that and actually be able to breathe. That would have been a good idea. I'm pretty satisfied with my life, but if I could somehow tweak those things, that would be lovely.
So we got to go back in time. We got to get the DeLorean, juice it up, get all that plutonium, and go back in time and get you and Allie to meet much, 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 much sooner.
The only problem with that is that I was undateable in my early 30s and in late 20s. I was just a terrible person, and no one would ever want to be around me for a long period of time.
Can
so
confirm.
That's they call that a fly in the ointment. But other than that, it would work out perfectly. But yes, I'm tired. And also, Mike, you were in a position a little bit different from me. You're about the same age as me, and going through the younger ages at a later time, which is even more exhausting. So you're experiencing that more so. So a tip of the cap to you, my friend.
Why, thank you.
Tony Randall had a kid when he was like 70 something.
Who?
No. Tony Randall.
Oh, the motivational speaker.
No, that's Tony Robbins.
He's talking about the actor. The Odd Couple?
Tony Randall.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Or you might know him from the Mr. Short-Term Memory sketch on Saturday Night Live, where Tom Hanks keeps on turning around and saying, "Hey, you're Tony Randall," because he has no memory.
But the thing is, in that situation, I think like Mick Jagger is like still having
In
kids
that
now,
situation
or,
when
or something.
we were on SNL.
No, I'm saying in that situation for a person that old that's also famous, they can pay for people to raise their kids.
I was just going to say, I was like, these people pay for help. They just see their kids in the good moments. It's like, Consuela, we have big feelings over here right now. Thank you. Back to my scotch. Speaking of scotch, what are you guys drinking?
Not scotch. I am drinking. I have the last of the Lazy Dog variety pack. For anyone who doesn't know, they do collaboration beers every quarter. This is called the Buddy System. It's an India Pale Ale brewed by Melvin Brewing in collaboration with Roadhouse Brewing, which I believe is also like owned by the same company. So it's basically Melvin Brewing collaborating with Melvin Brewing to make a beer.
One side of the brew house is collaborating with the other side of the brew house.
Pretty much. And by the way, Melvin Brewing is the one who brews all the beers for Lazy Dog, so it's kind of funny. But it's a pretty good IPA. It's more of a classic IPA, and I'm enjoying it.
Tim?
So I picked up a variety pack of Press premium alcohol seltzer, as it says on the side of the can.
Premium?
Yeah, alcohol seltzer.
Seltzer.
Yep. They're based out of La Crosse. I think they probably got some minority investment from like Constellation or something like that. But they are still technically. I mean, it's a woman in La Crosse, Wisconsin, started this company. The flavors that I have
Isn't
to
that
choose
where
from,
that big contract brewer Minhas is that in La Crosse?
I don't know where Minhas is. I don't think it's La Crosse. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't remember off the top of my head now. Making me fact check here. I don't know.
Sorry.
But the flavors that I had to choose from are lingonberry elderflower, apple cinnamon, pear chamomile, and pineapple basil. And
those all sound like THC flavors for drinks.
I have to tell you,
though apple cinnamon sounds kind of intriguing.
Apple cinnamon. So that's the one I have had, and I'm on my last one because I had one. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of nice. I wonder what this would be like as a float. And so I did an apple cinnamon seltzer with vanilla ice cream, and I have to say it was quite delightful.
Nice. Is the lingonberry a collaboration with IKEA?
You would think, right? That's the only experience I have with lingonberry, I think, in my entire life is IKEA.
You make a float with that, and I think is it Baskin Robbins who has a Swedish fish flavored ice cream. You float with a scoop of that.
Yeah, give that a try. I'm curious about that. I am going to pop right into because I just got done drinking a pineapple Fanta, so I'm going to ease that in with the pineapple basil.
You want a Fanta?
Press. I wanted a Fanta.
Don't you want to?
But no, I don't. Yeah, that commercial is what made me realize I was pronouncing Fanta wrong the entire time because I don't want a Fanta.
Don't you want to? And also, they're saying "don't ya," which is it a Minnesota brand? Saying, don't
Fanta?
ya? Don't you wanna?
We're not really at don't ya. Where are you, betcha?
Oh, sorry.
No.
I'm having what's that say? Malcontents of Dissonance, a triple IPA from Burial in North Carolina, and then I just have some High West bourbon for after that one because why not?
Malcontents of Dissonance sounds like an odd breed beer that Keith would have been very upset about the name of, because Matt would come up with these, complicated names, high-minded ideas, stringing together complex words that always sounded pretty cool. And Keith would just get mad. It's like, what does this mean? Can't you make these things more simple? Malcontents of dissonance.
So it's kind of a at this point a running joke at Burial that a lot of their beer names have like such weird long names to them that they even put on their website like, what is your Burial beer name? And it's like based off of like the first letter of your last name and your birth date and all of that, so you can form your own personal beer name. So let's do it. Let's have fun. I'm gonna go to their website and I'm gonna find that page on their site, and we're gonna create our beer names.
Nothing is more engaging in an audio podcast than you Googling some kind of survey. Okay, you're there.
Okay, so it's a 3-part thing. You go by first letter of your first name, birth month, and last letter of your last name. So that would be M, December, and Z for me. So mine is acrimonious anguish in the storm of sorrow that carried us home. That is my beer name. Kevin, you are you're July, right?
That is correct.
So and that would be K, July, T, meandering, debility, pining endlessly for malevolent amnesty. That is your Burial beer name.
It also describes me very well.
And Tim, what's your birth month?
April.
Okay. So we got T, April, N, gnarled austerity between rationality and hysteria. So there. That is this podcast's Burial beer names.
I will give them a lot of respect because they use the last letter of your last name. That I appreciate, because the easy thing is the first letter of your last name, but going with that for some reason just makes it seem, more edgy.
That is true, and that's what the kids say about them, is they are edgy. I don't know if that's what the kids are saying. Why would kids be talking about?
I was going to say, I've talked to my son many times, and at no point was he telling me about his views on Burial brewing. If he would be, I'd have to get him in some kind of program.
Those programs are expensive too. They're like many weeks. It's a summer camp,
especially for a 7-year-old.
All right. So, topic for this episode. When we were discussing this, I guess Kevin and Tim were talking about this before I got involved in it, but you pretty much prefaced that the latest big things in the craft beer world have not really been beer, or at least full strength beer. Like trends in the brewing industry have been around seltzers, THC drinks. I would even say like events, like food. Those types of things probably have been more trendy than beer styles over the last number of years. So we wanted to talk about what do we see as upcoming trends? Are any of them beer related? And is this just a continuing spiral down of the craft beer industry? Tim, I think that you're a great person to start this off with, because you currently now work in an adjacent industry that makes a beverage that I feel like a lot of breweries are getting into, and that's making coffee.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing, as I was kind of reopening my job hunt and was looking, I wanted something that was a little bit more industry proof, if I could say it. Coffee trends come and coffee trends go, certainly. But you're still seeing a lot of the old standbys for one, and I think two, people are finding. I think one of the neat things that craft beer did is they just made people want to appreciate craft, artisan, unique flavors, unique profiles, unique type of things. Got them out of their whatever. But I think now people are starting to explore, like, things that haven't necessarily become brand new, like this whole dirty soda thing that's going on now. Are you guys familiar with this?
No, I know of
No.
like kind of the healthy soda trend of like the Olipop stuff.
Dirty soda, I'm guessing that is a soda with olive juice and vodka. Is that true?
That would make sense. It is not. No, it's been like this thing of like. So I even noticed it at the grocery store. Just what was that, 2 days ago or whatever. Where Flavor Mate or one of those brands were advertising like half and half or like coffee creamer that is specifically designed to mix with soda instead of with coffee. Go check out the creamer section in your grocery store here the next time you go out there. Let me know if you see this thing. This isn't just a Midwest thing. This isn't just a Minnesota thing. It's this national brands that are putting money behind creating these things. Or Google it while we're on a podcast.
I am looking it up while we're recording a
Wait,
podcast.
I thought I heard something crazy in my ear. Creamers to put in your soda?
Yeah.
To what end? I drink Coke Zero. I'm not going full calorie stuff here, but I'm a soda fan, and I've never been drinking a Coke Zero and said, you know what this needs? Dairy products. It's never come to my mind.
Well, again, so I mentioned with making a float out of these, think about how many things you do add. They have root beer floats, they have Coke floats, they have Sprite floats. Like, I've seen this in plenty of other ways. That is a dairy product. I guess just think of this as melted ice cream, if anything else, going into there. But my point is
fair enough.
There is a younger generation that has really kind of latched onto this place. Like, I've actually started to hear about like people opening up like, dirty soda fountains. But the whole.
Have you read where this started? I am reading this, and this is insanity.
No, where did it start?
The Mormon Church.
Well, because they can't have anything good.
It was created because of a loophole that says that nothing says that they can't have caffeine. They're not allowed to have coffee or tea. So this is a loophole, and I guess one of the biggest names in this sector, Swig, was started in Utah. And yeah, they have shops like fountain, like soda fountains,
like soda fountains with this stuff. Yeah, so as I Google it now too, Coffee Mate has these dirty soda flavors out there. So yeah, like I said, not a Midwest thing, not a Minnesota thing. It is a national trend.
A Mormon thing. I think
it's a Mormon thing, but it's very quickly become not a Mormon thing. If Coffee Mate's hopping on, I don't think they're catering exclusively to Mormons. I'm sure there's some other knockoff version that will do that, but I think the thing that has been neat to me, as because we still we use a lot of the same language in coffee. We still talk about when we're talking about flavor profiles, or I think people are taking the knowledge that kind of came from beer and expanding it out. So 60% of our brew staff are all former beer brewers. It's not a coincidence. And I think now that people are starting to get into a little bit more of just understanding that craft doesn't just have to be craft beer. You can be craft a lot of things. And I think that's maybe, certainly one trend that I'm seeing, not just in coffee, but just in general, is that I think people have finally started to learn you can kind of break out on some of that stuff.
That's very interesting. And I think you talking about your coffee brewing experience, and obviously you worked in the RTD space and the THC drink space. So you've really done all this stuff that we're talking about, which has been the things that breweries
wine,
are doing.
The only thing you haven't made?
Pretty much. Yeah, I think about it, right? So spirits.
You made spirits, yeah.
Spirits, cocktails, coffee, NA, soda. Yeah, pretty much wine's about it.
I think you just got to make a 5-gallon batch in your bathtub, and then just to make sure you check that off, whether it's commercial or not, sell one bottle and you're good to go. Then you can put that on the old resume.
Well, I always wanted to make an NO beer, but nobody that I worked for was daring enough to let me do it. Essentially something that's just like, how like all these places are making grafts and they're saying they're making ciders, but they're really making grafts so that they can be taxed as a beer and not as a wine. You guys familiar with this? You're giving me a blank stare.
No.
So in
ciders under a wine.
Ciders under a wine because it's fruit must. And so it gets taxed at a higher rate. And so the way a lot of these places are doing it is they're making a graph, but it's basically just like a seltzer base with cider, but that 51% malt base qualifies it to be a beer. So they're still taxing a beer.
Braggot, isn't that what or that's honey, or is that honey?
Yeah, no. Yeah. Graph is the beer cider hybrid.
Okay.
And NO beer is the wine beer hybrid.
I've
never heard of that either.
And so it's something that I've wanted to do for long, because I don't know how many times at the brewery sitting around the tap room, I'll go ahead and stereotype, some old lady would come in and try to order wine and just like repeatedly try to do it, or like not get, this is a brewery, we don't make wine here type of thing. I was like, well, why don't we make a wine? Well, we can't make a wine. Well, no, we can't make a wine. Can't technically make a cider either. But we can make something that is indistinguishable from cider, and we can make something that would be pretty indistinguishable from beer. And so I thought about, sourcing some grape must from like BSG and trying to get this thing to go. And I could never convince anyone that owned a brewery I worked at to let me do it.
And it's called NO beer?
So OENO, so that the prefix for wine, so like someone who studies wine is an enologist. OENOLOGIST. They're an but it's pronounced enologist. Enology is the study of wine. And so NO beer is the style.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like learning things.
This has not been so much a conversation as more of a teaching session. The professor has taught Mike and I several things that we had no conceptual idea of.
So NO beer is the next big thing. Yes.
I don't, but I'm surprised that it has not taken off more, frankly. So
well, what I want to just kind of, even though we've already got into the conversation, like setting the stage here for my entire career in the business, and I would suggest for both of you guys as well. We were chasing beer trends. It was, what is the big thing to go? Going back to my early days in the industry, it's the IBU wars, right? And then, so who can make the most bitter IPA? That's the thing that's going to win, that people are going to get excited about. You're going to make your money off of. And then you're talking about pastry stouts, right? And then you go into just insane adjuncts, just adjunct wild, not stouts necessarily, but just anything you can think of, just high fruit contents and other crazy ingredients. And then you had then all the while having all these conversations. The next big thing is going to be Italian Pilsners. The next big thing is going to be this. The next big thing is going to be that. And all of us are chasing this theoretical thing that's going to make us money and be the new brand for the brewery. And it's wild to me that every time I talk to someone, either internally in my business or in other breweries, The next big thing has nothing to do with a regular alcoholic beer. And we've gone from seltzers to the THC to now coffee. And now obviously, Tim, what you're talking about is not necessarily the next big thing. It could be, but the hype in the industry just is not around alcoholic beer. And every brewery, for the most part, in production in the United States right now is set up just to make alcoholic beer. And it is wild and really a kind of a measuring stick or whatever you want to say about where we are when everyone's thinking, okay, what can we do to not do this anymore? Can we make aluminum siding with our tank? No, we can't. Okay, so what can we make?
It's really funny that you bring up the aluminum siding kind of as a joke, because I used to, people used to always come into Badger Hill and ask, why don't you make a cider? Why don't you make blah, 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 blah? And my response was, do you go into a Chinese food restaurant and get mad that they don't also have tacos? Do you go to a pizza place and get really mad that you can't get lo mein? Like, why are you going to a brewery if you want to get something other than beer? That used to be kind of the joke that I would make all of the time. Well, joke's on me, because that is the way this is going. I mean, one of the
I was right there with you.
Yeah, one of the opportunities that I had around the time that I ended up taking this coffee job was a brewery that really has started to consider themselves a beverage company. They don't consider themselves a brewery because their biggest growth is in alcohol pops, right? That category that we all thought kind of died with Mike's Hard Lemonade is coming back hard because people are realizing that you can do more than just make an alcoholic lemonade. You can actually have these fun alcoholic sodas that, I don't know if Hard Mountain Dew is still out there. I
think it wasn't until the last quarter that Twisted Tea was doing really well over the last number of years.
Yeah.
It was getting up there to be one of Boston Beer's best selling things.
And you're starting to see some of these places that they're not even doing the alcohol pops or the flavored malt beverages or those types of things and growing. Some of them really just got into producing soda. For all this bluster about how big the non-alcoholic beer category, how much growth is in there, I still kind of am dubious of all of those claims. Because if I sold one last year and I sold two this year, I have 100% growth. Does that really mean that growth is something that I really need? Because I think I have tried just about every NA beer under the sun. Back when I was brewing NA beer, I did it for research. I've just tried it on my own to find ones I enjoy. Some of them have gotten pretty good, but they're not replacing beer, right? The best athletic IPA would not rank anywhere on my list of favorite IPAs.
Yeah.
The whole idea there is oh, this is pretty good for an NA.
Yeah.
But you know what? If I'm going to go to the trouble of drinking an IPA, I want the best damn IPA I'm going to get, not a middling meh. You know what? If I was handed this blind, I wouldn't be impressed by it. But the second you tell me it's NA, I'm impressed.
But the important thing about that is it is a replacement for many people who are trying to drink less. But when you're trying to drink less, are the majority of people really going to reach for a NA beer, or are they going to reach for a THC beverage, or are they going to drink for a soda or a, what have you, a hop water? Because of what you're saying is that I was just thinking this exact same thing, Tim. I'm right now, moved on to my IPA Verdant Embrace. Right now, for the sake of this podcast, if I had a version of that beer that had no alcohol in it, I would prefer to drink it. because I'm talking with you guys and I'm trying to be as coherent as possible. There's a really good place for that. But the vast majority of people who drink beer, 90 some percent, maybe higher, are doing it because they want to get drunk.
Yeah.
Or they want the buzz that beer gives you. They're not doing it for the flavor because they're drinking unoffensive fucking lagers, right? So they're never going to come on the NA train and really like blow this market up. And so it's always going to be a niche. I was sent, and this whole idea of mine to do this show was predicated around getting an email from my partner, Bill, that was talking about NA, because we are trying to develop a THC drink and we are trying to do different things because we have to. It's just a necessity in this market. And I've been pushing down this NA thing forever because I said, it's not for us. It's a package play that you need large scale grocery distribution.
Yeah.
If you are not doing that, you don't have a brand. You are not going to sell NA beer to mom and pop locations in cans. There's no draft, and justify a brand new brand out of it. So I get this email, and it's a newspaper article or a web article, and it was breaking down that NA is now the second biggest category of beer in, I guess, the US. I don't know where the numbers came from. And it said, and I love this, it said lagers are 92% of the market. Lagers. Ales are only 4% of the market. And NA beers are now 5% of the market or something. And then it broke down like wheat beers are 2% and porters are 2%. Those are all ales.
Yep.
It was just this complete misunderstanding of our industry and how beers are categorized to manufacture this. It's trying to manufacture some kind of interesting piece about the beverage industry, right?
Yeah.
And my partner sends it to me like, look what's happening here. And I'm like, they're still saying it's like 4% of the market, and it's not going to get much bigger than this. And all of that 4% is going to be gobbled up by the big guys doing it. And there's no space for the local craft brewery to even make a dent.
Yeah, I mean, there are like 3 breweries around town that have some fairly successful NA beers on the market. Now, behind closed doors, I talked to a lot of those owners, and they're like, yeah, we do it for a branding thing. We don't do it because it's big. Well, because like, I'm sorry, even if I have world-class IPA that's NA, world-class IPA that is full strength, I know which one I'm willing to pay a premium price for. You are hard pressed. Like, you're spending just as much. Actually, you're probably spending more time making NA than you are a regular beer. Probably more resources than you are a regular beer. And you're gonna have a hard time selling it at that price, right? Because some of these places have it on tap at the tap room, right? They might have a Kolsch and an NA Kolsch, and they have to charge $1 less for that NA Kolsch just to get it to move, even though it took just the same, if not more, to get it produced. And I think that's one of the biggest hurdles that no one is talking about in this. To your point about needing scale, right? Is even if you can find a way to do it on scale, just because you can find a way to make something profitable by making it large enough doesn't mean that it's still a worthy endeavor.
Yeah, I think I found the article that you were talking
did you?
about, Kevin. Yeah, it actually says that it's 2% of the market, but
I was just pulling numbers on my ass.
but it does say that it surpassed ale.
Yes,
as the number 2 thing. It does mention that athletic brewing is 17% of the NA market, which is a pretty crazy number to think of for that, but. It's just skimming through this. This is giving me a headache. This article.
I just want to be clear here, and I don't have these numbers Is this article telling me that that non-alcoholic beer is selling more than IPAs? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if
I'm
that's
sorry. It also
possible.
says it's on track to, not that it has,
Oh, okay.
but yeah, and that's a thing. I've been always reading that like IPA is the number one selling like style in for like grocery SKUs for
Oh,
like the last
forever.
however many years.
And this is
So
this
I don't know what this is going off of.
and this one specifically highlighted, I remember, wheat beer and porter. And by the way, wheat beer, yes, to a certain degree, because you have your Blue Moon, you have big SKUs, but porter? What are the large commercial porters out there that are really moving volume? Anyway, these articles are obviously dubious at best. But, you know, one of the things that when we're working with like our marketing company, and when I'm trying to develop like a plan for a new brand or just growth for our brand, I try to understand first, what does success look like? If we do this, how will we know it's successful? And are we using benchmarks that are related to direct dollars, best case scenario? Or in like marketing, are we looking at likes or engagement or something else? If we don't have those benchmarks in place of what success looks like, we can like internally justify success in so many ways that are not at
Yeah.
all profitable and are actually potentially hurting our business. Tim, when you were talking about the NA beers with the people you have, discussing that and they have it because they need to have it, we can all justify and talk ourselves into we need something that might at the end of the day actually be losing us money. But it feels successful because 14 people talked about it and it got written up in a local magazine. That's not how business works. We have to look at what actually can like bring money into the business and make it successful so you can pay your employees. And I'm very worried about breweries in my situation. I think if I could pivot right now and start using, I got 6 20-barrel tanks and I've got 280s and 240s. And especially during the summer, those tanks aren't always full because it's just not that busy, right? If I could take a 20 and say, now I do coffee in one of those, and I don't know anything about brewing coffee, Tim, so excuse my ignorance. And the other one, I'm doing a freaking soda or something, and I could sell all of it, and I could now bring in more revenue, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
You'd love the coffee. You can turn it around in 24 hours. You don't have to you
Right.
don't have to hold up that tank space.
But so many of these things, ginger beer, you can do these things, but then
Yeah.
you have to have outlets for them. You
Yeah.
have to be able to sell them at scale. You have to get them into Whole Foods and Fresh Market and Sprouts and all those places. And that doesn't just happen like that. Those are relationships that are built over time. And they have to have like history of sales that will be consistent, that you can plan on and count on 6 months, a year and a half from now when somebody else comes in and replaces you because there's only 4 of those on the shelf.
Yeah, I mean you're better off taking that mom and pop coffee brand that started out of their garage and someone like your size buying that brand than you are trying to launch it from the jump. I mean,
It's a great point.
Look no further than seltzers, right? White Claw got hot. Suddenly, every brewery under the sun was making a seltzer, and they never really held on because there was limited shelf space for those seltzers.
Yeah.
And White Claw and Truly done. Now, I get that I'm drinking it. It is certainly a lot more niche with these flavors. This lingonberry elderflower, which is like a Monty Python porn name, I think. But is there find your Monty Python porn name generator on the
Probably.
website? But I think what a lot of these breweries found is, okay, no, we're not. We're backing out. We're not going to mass produce anymore. We thought we are going to mass produce, or we're going to 2 flavors. Now people are like, more and more and more and more breweries just brew a seltzer base and then whatever you want to mix with at the time of dispense, things like that. I think because, like you said, those relationships require so much. You're much better saying, you know what, I have the tank space, I have the capacity, I can help your brand grow. Come inside my house.
Yeah.
Rather than try to launch it ex nihilo, which I think just feels
Because
like.
so I look at I have a coffee roaster not far from me that does production on a pretty decent sized scale. It's definitely the biggest roaster I've seen around here. And they make cold brew, they package it, they do kegs of it, and it is very surprising how much it looks like a brewery because they essentially have a mash tun where they put the beans and the water, and that's where it sits for a day. And then all the coffee gets transferred into bright tanks, where they package it off of bright tanks for. They do bottles, cans. They do the bag and box coffees and kegs for market. But that's the thing too is like you need basically a dedicated sales force for doing something like that aside from your brewery because you're not going to be distributing that product through your distributor of for beer, and you need your beer people working on that and not on coffee. So, like you're Tim was right about like you'd be better off just buying a business who's already established somewhat with it and building off of that part of it and just kind of having it somewhat under a roof. Tim, I actually have a question about your company where you're at. Is do you guys only do uh, uh, mass production for uh, grocery and package, or do you have like localized like draft accounts or anything like that that's specific to the Twin City area?
No, not really. We're a national brand. I was just looking up because I was like, I want to say when you had just said Sprouts that within like the last few years we've gotten into Sprouts. I mean, we are a national brand. We also do private label stuff for some national grocery chains. Um,
Okay,
that
so yeah,
won't necessarily. Yeah,
you guys are built to be pretty at mass. It wasn't really a small thing where they were making kegs and supplying it
well,
to
but
local coffee shops, or were
but
they?
it
And then they
but it
just
did well. So it did grow up. It literally was two guys launching this out of a garage, right? And then the place that we're in now. I've only been there for 6 weeks or whatever, but they've taken over parts of that building, and I'm willing to bet in 2 years we're going to move again because we're just going to run out of space for all of this stuff. And they were at a previous location before, so it did kind of grow iteratively. But at this point now, like I think the last thing I saw us posting was as a sales manager for like the Northeast United States or something like that. Like we don't really treat it so much as we're a local Minnesota company as much as 3M is a local Minnesota company, but no one is, uh, going, "Oh, how cute and artisanal is Velcro?" Uh, you know what I mean? Like, at some point when you do hit a scale that you kinda aren't a small thing anymore. Like, no sorry, that kind of a detour, but, when Miller Coors bought Crispin, um so there were a couple of Minnesota beer writers that were talking about how it was a shame, and I was like, they designed that company to get big and sell. They didn't design. They weren't this local like handpicked from Minnesota orchards type of thing. They were building a national brand from the jump. Uh, and again, if I sold my Velcro patent, my to steal from Garden State, my silent Velcro, if I sold my silent Velcro to 3M, the story wouldn't be oh, that guy's a sellout. That would be a local boy hits it big with his genius invention that goes up. And we've always had this kind of this bias in the beer industry that not good for you for actually being able to retire in brewing because you sold for enough money to actually be able to afford the future. There's always been kind of a bias, and so some of those smaller, when you get into like things like a coffee company, you are going to have to make a decision of, am I going to be this local and only local, which as far as that goes, not a whole lot of locally grown coffee beans. But I think there is kind of a trade-off for some of these things. And so like when I talk about a brewery that is now considered themselves a beverage company, I think like their sodas are in more states than their beer is. They're like Sprecher. Think about it like Sprecher, right? So a friend of mine used to work for Sprecher, and she used to always say, "We're not a brewery. We're a soda company that happens to make beer."
Yeah, I've
And
always heard that their soda sells more than their beer. I
Sprecher
don't
root
know how
beer is
much.
their number one product by far and away. Not even close. Not even close. I can't find Sprecher beer on liquor store shelves here, but I can find Sprecher soda. Like it is, and we're only one state away.
Yeah.
Like I've kind of forgotten that Sprecher even made beer at one point, and they still do, I guess. But that is one thing that when you talk about what's next in beer, some of these categories that you're going to get into because you want to broaden your customer base. Like I've joked on this podcast before that craft beer is your dad's drink, right? I believe I called it the New Balance sneaker of beverages.
I think that someone was you.
Yeah.
Said that.
But I don't know. This is wild. This is wild speculation on my part. This is a hypothesis I have. I've always had a love-hate relationship with hazy IPAs. But one thing that I think hazy IPAs did to help kind of precipitate the downfall of craft beer was that there became a lot of sameness. Like I could put the same hazy IPA on 4 taps and give it 4 different names that I guarantee you maybe only 2 customers a week would call me out on it. Like, but what that did was that because it drove so much of that sameness, you kind of quit inviting new people into the space, right? Like, Coke doesn't just make Coke. I think when I still breweries to this day, I still go to. I still see like 4 hazy IPAs on tap. I think when you get into like these other spaces like soda, like coffee, like hop water, like THC, like whatever, whether you want to call it beer or saturated or not, I don't know that it's a saturation point so much as we've alienated existing customers and we haven't found a way to lure new ones. And I think that is a place where you really do get to bring in, you get to widen the tent a lot more with some of these things. And I think that's where people are starting to feel like, shit, maybe we have to.
Well, I think that I think you're onto something there, but I don't think that it is uh, as focused as being like they have 4 hazies on tap and it could all be the same beer. I do think that it is an oversaturation of breweries in general in areas, especially with such probably wide variations on quality and a word that I don't like to use, but guess what? Young people like to use it, and it really does come into play when they buy stuff. Vibes. Um, like craft beer is essentially like the dad's drink at this point in time. I don't think that there's any doubt about that. I am a dad. It still is a drink for me. And it is a matter of trying to appeal to younger people at this point. We are trying to replace drinkers who don't drink anymore, drink less, or are dead. And so therefore the young people, the young generation are where we got to get it. And if the beer isn't it, then we got to diversify. I feel like this podcast will just be called the burial one, but like
Yeah.
to go back to them, like this is a brewery who started as a small little brewery in Asheville's South Slope, who now have two breweries in Asheville. They have uh, a wine brand where they source grapes and wine from California and then created their own wine brands, a THC brand. They have tap rooms in Charlotte and Raleigh. They have a mail order service. That's where I've gotten these cans from them, is they do a lot of online shipping. Like they have a music venue too. Like they have completely diversified to the furthest extent, and I think they have just started doing coffee too. Like there's almost nothing that they will say no to it. It seems like if they say it, see something that, hey, we can make this fit within our family of brands, then let's fucking do it and go all in on it. I think that being open to stuff like that is the most, like, to go to back to Kevin talking about his partners emailing him. I give them props because I know all of Kevin's partners, and a lot of times they seem like people who have their heels dug into the sand as deep as you possibly can, and would never budge on things like that. I mean, to see what they have budged on over the years is impressive, but to see them like sending emails like, "Hey, NA, blah 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 blah," like I give them props for being invested, for keeping up with some sort of the trend work that's going on and wanting to diversify, because there are a lot of brewery owners out there who would just be like, no, just fold their arms in front of them and be like, I will go down with this fucking ship. Like, oh yeah, with all of your employees aboard who want to keep their jobs. Like, I believe I've said it on the show before, but I give Bill and Keith and Matt kudos for budging and not just crossing their arms.
Well, I think there's many things that have gone into it, and it's varying levels of success for what we have done, and varying levels of growth, and wanting to be able to have this thing sustain itself for a long period of time, and realizing what that might have to look like. But something struck me when you guys both were talking about your dad's drink being craft beer now. I think we might have to we're talking about the next big thing, but just to kind of look back in the history, I think we might have to just look back on this. Let me back up here. Forever now, everyone talks about how the middle class made America, and it was the 1950s and the growth in the middle class, and that's what happened and made America the greatest country in the world.
What is a middle class?
Well, the important
I've heard of it. I feel like they're like dragons.
But that's what I'm getting at, is that there was a very specific set of circumstances that made the middle class in the United States, which is all coming out of World War II and the growth of industry and the fact that the U.S. could create things that other powerhouses in economies in the worldwide economy couldn't do. And we say, like, we need to get back to that. I don't know that we ever can, because there's more global competition and there are not the perfect storm of circumstances to do that ever again. Possibly, right?
Yeah.
I think craft beer is a little bit like that. The perfect storm was people being really interested in this and the right amount of breweries doing it, like, so that it was still special, so that you still kind of had to drive 40 minutes to go to a brewery and pick up all the beer you could get your hands on, or you were lucky enough to live in a town where this brewery was there and rocking, and it became like a focal point of the town. I think there was a specific set of circumstances that made craft beer what it was. And the second that we hit that tipping point of ubiquity, where now I can drive 5 minutes in any direction and hit a craft brewery, why is it special? Why is it unique? Why is it unique when every one of them has 4 hazy IPAs? When you can't identify quality at all? we have reached that saturation point through all these different means where what we all thought we were signing up for just isn't really here anymore. And we have to diversify if all of us want to succeed. Now, if we all just want to, and I'm talking obviously, Tim, you're not in the industry right now, but if we all want to hold on for the next 10 years while just the attrition rate just doubles and triples and all these other breweries die off to the point where you're the only brewery in your town, I bet money you're going to be real successful, because I think there still will be people who will be interested in it, and there will be renewed interest from a new generation because it will be the new cool thing that wasn't popular for the last 10 years and people will like it. But for the people that are doing it now and not counting on it and not having the bank account to sustain them for 10, 15 years until that happens, you're going to have to chase a new thing. I don't know if it's going to be successful for everybody. It's going to take a lot of luck and a lot of good planning, but maybe it's coffee and maybe it's soda and maybe it's ginger beer and maybe it's something else. I think everyone has to explore it, exhaust the options, not close any doors until they know it can't be profitable for them.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I'm going to chime in with you here because I'm not going to name the person. One, because I don't actually remember his first name, but there was a guy not too long ago that was on Twitter talking about, like, there's not enough breweries in the country. Look at how many wineries there are in the country. There can be just as many breweries, and we're nowhere close to that. Tim, do you remember that conversation?
I recall this conversation. Do you recall me chiming in on this conversation?
Yes, you were. That's why I wanted to bring you into it, because I do remember you getting heavily involved in that conversation.
Because
it was
that
just
person
such
also fancies themselves as a beer consultant, but
yes.
Refuses
somehow
to
has
actually
failed
listen.
upwards. I can't remember who he's working for now, but like is working for someone of substance. And you always have those people who, they speak loud enough, they can fail upwards no matter if what they're saying is correct or not. But like the guy completely didn't understand that, like, there's wineries. Like, I went to a winery in Sonoma County a few years back, right before we had the boys, and talking to the winemaker, he's like, "Oh, I haven't made a batch of wine in 3 years."
Yeah,
he's like, "I have so many bottles of stuff still sitting on here. Like, I have to get through this supply before I can make more wine." And like, there's got to be other people doing the same exact thing that somehow are making it work. Like, I mean, they must own the properties and blah, 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 to where they don't have to close. But man, it's such a completely fucking different thing to be talking about wineries than fucking breweries in this country.
I think there are so many bad analogies that get brought up with beer that drive me up the wall. The winery to beer, two completely different things. Not only is your supply chain different, not only do wineries have an advantage of, you know what, if this year's stout tastes a lot different than last year's stout, people are mad. If this year's wine tastes a lot the same as last year's wine, people are mad. Like, it's the opposite thing. Kevin, you can talk about this in your former wine steward world. Like, people care about the year and the vintage and all those, whether they know or not is an entirely different thing. But the way we treat wine is not the way we treat beer. The way we pay for wine is not the way we pay for beer. I remember one time I bought a 6-pack of Westy 12, and I don't remember what I paid for it, but it was too much.
Was that the one-time U.S. release?
It was the one-time U.S. release, yeah.
I think that was like in the $20 range. Like.
And my father-in-law at the time threw an absolute fit about how much money that I spent on beer. And then at dinner that night, he bought like a $200 bottle of wine, and I wanted to order a $20 bottle of wine and say, "Tell me the difference." Like just the consumer is completely different. Everything about it is, and like, people are always comparing breweries to restaurants, and I'm like, nope, not anywhere close. You have to think of a brewery. You are better served comparing a brewery to a widget manufacturer than you are to a winery or to a restaurant. A brewery is a widget manufacturer at the end of the day.
And not only is that the case, and I've said this many times on this show, and I'm sorry if it becomes repetitive, but even breweries in different barrelage productions are different businesses.
Yeah.
They're completely different business models. I mean, even scaling up, I've said
In a couple episodes ago, the sponsor thing alone, we were talking about like basically two different businesses that do the same thing that couldn't do that.
I mean, I think I've told this story about how one of the big supporters of Badger Hill to help get them going was a state representative, and he brought all of the I don't remember what it was. I gave a private tour to like 24 state representatives, and it was right around the time they were trying to figure out like growler laws and things like that. And one of the, I was talking about like they were talking about how they were going to protect us small breweries. They're going to protect us small breweries, and they kept on like ripping on Surly, like the bigger breweries. And at one point, I was like, no, you need to actually open up these growler laws. Let Surly sell growlers. It's silly that you don't. Like, isn't that going to hurt you? And I was like, no, if you just open up who has access to beer, it's better for all of us. This is a case where the rising tide raises all ships. And he's like, well, don't you think like once you get to a certain size, you should just be competing with Budweiser? And I just laughed and laughed and laughed. He goes, what's so funny? I said, you just compared Surly to Budweiser. That's like comparing my toddler at the time to like Minute Bowl and wondering why they're not the same size. I'm like, you have no clue in the faintest. Here you are trying to brag to me about what you're doing economically for my small business, and you don't understand the scale of the business in the first place. Instead of sitting here bragging to me what you like you're gonna do for me, crazy idea. Just fucking ask. Just ask.
I just want to say, your toddler, Badger Hill, Surly, Muggsy Bogues, AB, Minute Bowl.
Nice. Yeah, well done. Yeah, I think we all, the people on this show, have a certain level of expertise. We can argue, and I'm sure people listening will argue what level that expertise is. And for the record, you're right. Whatever you think, you're right. But I endlessly wonder about the things that I have a little bit of knowledge on, of how wrong I am. Because I do know quite a bit about this business. And when I read an article like the one, Mike, that you pulled up that I mentioned earlier, and I find it to be just unfathomably wrong and misrepresentative of our industry, how many people that are dealing with economic issues for the federal government, or how many people that are dealing with the car industry or whatever it is that have expertise in this field will look at every press release, every politician catering to their whims, and go, you idiots don't know a thing about what you're talking about. We just have a little bit of knowledge about this industry, and we see it endlessly.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, nobody covering the craft beer industry really gets it right. I mean, it's so rare, I should say, that they get it right.
Smaller independent people do.
Yeah.
I want
sure. No one whose article is going to show up on MSNBC or BuzzFeed or
That's what I'm getting to. And I'm not saying nobody, of course. I'm being a little bit, a little bit crazy here when I'm saying that, but a little bit, I'm painting with too broad a brush when it comes to that. But I think it's an important thing, just taking out of the beer space for a second. Like, think about anything you ever read about, and know that someone knows a lot more about this, and whatever you're reading probably doesn't have the nuance. and doesn't represent the complexity of that industry or that or that piece of information. And what you really need is an expert. And we have so defamed and just like demonized the idea of expertise and knowledge in this country that we don't even want to hear from those people anymore, because it's like, well, but they're saying things that are complicated and really complex and it's too layered. I can't really understand it.
But Kevin,
that's what every issue is.
It didn't rain on the president's parade. Therefore, climate change isn't real. I don't know what you don't understand about that. He laid that right out. It makes perfect sense to me. No, it's funny you say that. Like, I started giggling because I remember even internally sometimes. So when I used to work at B-Dubs corporate, I was considered an insider, so I was subject to insider trading, which is funny. I didn't have the same restrictions at Best Buy corporate, but at B-Dubs, I was considered more in the know or whatever. So I would regularly listen to the earnings call, and I would sit there and I would listen to our CEO talk about a project I was working on, for instance, the Coke to Pepsi transition. And the whole time I'm like, nope, that's not true. Nope, I don't know where you got that. Nope, I don't know who gave you that talking point. And it was our own CEO. Like sometimes even the best, people are pointing out just these terrible things. So yeah, I absolutely know, like, so much of what gets put out there is bullshit.
And industry people that are doing this, that are struggling to pay rent, are being influenced by these external sources, telling them what the industry is doing and not critically evaluating it. And I think I've been very clear. I do believe that people in our industry have to find revenue streams outside of alcoholic beer.
Yep.
100%. It is going to be a necessity for you. And I encourage everyone to exhaust those options and find ones that fit within a profit model for you. But you can die in the weeds if you consume all this information from non-expert sources that are saying this is the next big thing. To go back to what we talked about before, seltzer was the next big thing. It was never a craft brewery play. Never. Not from the first moment it existed to the time that we now have like 5 brands, period, that sell anything anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And will THC beverages become the same thing? Will non-alcoholic beer become the same thing? At some point, it's a gamble. But you have to look at the market and what you think that market will bear and make an educated guess. And sometimes when your educated guess is no, this will not work, go with your gut instinct if you have some expertise in the field and you have any kind of foresight and reason for your belief.
The thing, like, when you talk about THC specifically, right? So I know some breweries that where THC is the only thing keeping the lights on. I know some breweries that have actually pivoted to, hey, we're going to be a contract THC brewery. We're not even going to care so much about our own brand, but we have the capacity, we have the resources, we can go ahead and do all of this. And what I say to everyone, because, I remember on Mapped, they're like, did we get into this space? And I was like, yes, get in yesterday. Get in while the getting is good. Because the more this becomes legalized, the more it becomes regulated. And the more it becomes legalized and regulated, the more the bigger guys have more sway in what's going on. The second that THC beverages are legal at a federal level, good night craft breweries. Good night craft breweries on THC beverages.
The lobbying to regulate that to the advantage of AB will be,
But even if they don't regulate small breweries out of existence in the THC space, they're just going to win the market share.
Oh, of course.
There's not enough unique about a local. That's what we saw in seltzer. And by the way, this lingonberry elderflower, quite quite delightful. I am very much enjoying it. But what we found in that space was, yeah, unless you're doing something completely off the wall, you're gonna have a hard time differentiating. Like, what is the difference between your black cherry and their black cherry and this black? Like, the second AB, and I know for a fact that they are piloting and working on THC. The second the feds give a green light, I'm not saying game over. Every brewery is going to close, but it's going to do what White Claw did to the seltzer space.
But and by the way, and to give a counterpoint to that, the big boys did not dominate the seltzer space. They tried to get into the seltzer space, and they have struggled mightily to compete against White Claw, and Truly. Now, Truly obviously is Sam Adams, right? Like there's a lot of money behind that business. It's a pretty big business.
Yeah.
But there is a space if you get in as an early adopter and become a call brand. There is a space. You got to get real lucky. It's not just about being good, it's about being lucky.
Surfside is a great example of that with the tea.
But White Claw was never a small local craft place.
No.
Oh, no, I'm not saying any of it. I'm not saying any of it was local craft. I don't believe local craft is going to do anything in any of these spaces once they become dominated and there's major focus by large corporations on it. I think anyone's going to struggle in that space.
So maybe
like
so, maybe
what's it? Mark Anthony Brands. That's the name of that company. Like they have a lot of money, but they're a beverage company. They're not.
Maybe I'm wrong in saying AB. What I'm saying is someone larger with someone larger, more well endowed from a capital standpoint.
All the marketing dollars in the world, yes.
Yeah, that already has access to all the other things. They're going to eat up supply chain. They're going to everything.
Well, I wanted to go along with the fact that it's not someone in the beer industry like that are Surfside. You guys know those alcoholic tea drinks, right? No, they're huge right now. When we were talking about sponsorship things, I talked about how they're one of the sponsors in the Twins Stadium. They have like a lounge there. They're a Philadelphia distillery that they were just making called Stateside, and they're just making vodka, and they're like, let's do teas with vodka in them and do flavors, and it fucking caught on, and now I think they're the biggest growing alcohol brand in the country right now. But like that is not a brewery. Like that was a distillery who had vodka and kind of lucked out in that, and now have the money to put behind sponsorship deals, big sales forces, and things like that. Like these things are rarely coming from inside the brewing industry.
I think the message is, for the people I'm talking to are coming from the experience that I have.
And Tim.
Well, and hopefully 3 or 4 other people out there. But
hi Eric, hi Kevin's dad.
I'm saying this from a position of my experience, a 2,000 barrel brewery.
Yep.
It's not going to be yours, brewer. It's not going to be yours. You are not going to be the big THC brand or the big seltzer brand or the big whatever brand that takes over the local market and owns it. Now, you might get in at an early time and make some money off of it, and you might have long-term residual success if you're in early enough in that local market, but you're probably not going to become the national brand, the national call brand. If you're in Florida, people in Idaho are probably not going to be drinking your drink because you have these big wide ideas about what you're going to do. Probably. Maybe you can buck the system and just, you roll nothing but 7s and you're good to go. So you have to look at what that 5-year plan is, what that 3-year plan is, what that 10-year plan is. If you can be profitable with the project for 3 years and then it evaporates and you're like, well, we got out of that. We made it for a while. We made money off of it. And now we're on to the next thing. That's what a brewery at my size needs to do. They need to be realistic about the prospects of the long-term success of the brands that they put out.
So go ahead, Tim.
No, I was going to say, so do you guys remember, I'm going to say remember because it's still technically around. But it's sort of like Shopko or one of these other brands that still technically is around that isn't around. Do you guys remember Not Your Father's Brewery? Or Not Your Father's Root Beer?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right? Small town brewery, I think is what it was. It was literally a product literally made in like PVC tanks, like not even like professionally made, whatever. Found the right wagon to hitch to. Right? Exploded and then disappeared. Fell off the fucking map.
And so what we're doing right now, the space is ripe with that kind of drink. And they're not even a part of that conversation.
So they actually were purchased by Fusion, I believe is the name of the company. The people who did Four Loko, and they a number of years ago, I listened to a podcast with someone from Fusion Brands. It was on the Good Beer Hunting podcast, and it was a really eye-opening talk about how like they were like fast fashion for alcoholic beverages, and when they bought Not Your Father's, like it was starting to come up, and they saw something in it, and like they're the ones who pushed it out into the mass, like they owned it by that point.
Exactly.
But they were always so quick to kill a brand, like once it was like starting to see a downturn, and move on to something new. And I thought that it was an interesting concept for that type of business to be like, all right, this did us as far as it's going to get us. Let's move on to the next thing. And like there's something to be said about that as a business practice if that's like what you're running on.
But that's like that's for like a serial entrepreneur thing. That's not for like
it is.
That's not for like a craft. You know, it's part of this is so this was before I got into coffee. There was a coffee company that I worked with in a brewing space, and I talked to their CFO regularly. And for some reason, it was just in like unfathomable. You know the word. I can't pronounce it right now. He could not fathom.
It was without fathom.
It was sans fathom.
I knew someone who used to believe that word was pronounced phantom.
Well, it's also it's definitely unfathomable. But
he was like, I can't even phantom what you were thinking. I'm like, excuse me, what did you just say?
The idea, and so this is where Tim's gonna get a little crazy left wing on you guys. But he could not fathom the idea that the goal of a business owner wouldn't be the number one goal of a business owner wouldn't be year-over-year growth. And I'm like, and I said the challenge for me is that if you look at all the mom and pop places, that is not sustainable. But you know what? If I can run a hardware store in Wilton, Iowa, a town that I know is not growing, but it's going to pay my mortgage, it's going to make me part of the community, it's going to allow me to do that, I don't have to open up 6 different hardware stores. I don't have to constantly be looking at year-over-year growth. I just need to be looking at what are the steps I need to do to maintain, to sustain what I'm at. And so the idea, I think one of the challenges is that so many people got into craft beer Like you talk about saturation. I kind of think saturation is a myth. I know I just said don't compare breweries to restaurants, but no one ever talks about how saturated the restaurant market is, and restaurants are opening up every 5 minutes and closing every 5 minutes. I like we don't have these pearl clutching moments about that in other industries. For some reason, in craft beer, we love to clutch pearls. Oyster stout, Kevin, pearl clutcher, get on it. Um, but like the idea that all of these things sometimes we don't have to when we look at what's next to kind of what you were saying, Mike, is like ride that wave and then kill it and move on. I think the biggest challenge with craft brewing for the longest time has been they've been so desperate on some of these things. Like you saw this in 2012, where every brewery that was opening up way too large for the customer base that they could really serve, right?
So I just want to say for the record, I don't think that type of thing works for most of your craft breweries. I just thought that was an interesting business model for that type of business, who is a beverage company, who is not a brewery. They don't have like production facilities. Stuff is contracted out through multiple facilities and all of that. I just thought for that case it was interesting.
But I think that might be a way that craft breweries, because I think at this point, anyone who's opened up a brewery that thinks they're going to be like 50,000 barrels in 2 years, is dumb. And by the way, every time I see everyone opening up a new brewery right now, I just think, you poor bastard. What are you doing to yourself? But
Unless they got a really good deal on equipment from a closing brewery.
Yeah, but when
and they own the property.
But when I say things like THC, get in while the getting's good, I think there does need to be an adaptability to the craft brewer owner model. You talk about earlier about people digging in their heels of maybe the next big thing isn't this is the next big thing that I can explode with. Maybe it's literally not looking at this as a growth mechanism, but as a sustainability. If I'm constantly having to do something new, right? So you know who developed the digital camera?
Me.
Kodak. You know who's terrible in digital? Kodak.
Yeah.
Because everyone at Kodak at the time said we're a film company. They did not understand the changing times. That doesn't mean that they could have killed it as that. But when you don't recognize that you're constantly having to ask what's next. And don't look at that as a growth vehicle nearly as much as sometimes you just gotta tread.
Well, I'll say this, and I respect that position a great deal. I think what many people are in the position of is saying, we started this business with a 5-year plan in tow.
Yeah.
And we never got to profitability.
Yeah. Oh, right? Yeah. Oh, for sure.
So if we don't have a growth model, we'll never be profitable and we're going to close down. Right? Like, so I think that marrying those two kind of ideas of like being comfortable with what you have, I think sometimes you have to pivot and say, okay, this isn't working. We need to do something else here in this space so we can get to a point where we can just maintain. We can just exist, and we can put some money in the coffers for, one of the things that I was going to talk about, one of the ideas I had about talking about a show was like capital expenditures. Like, let's just talk about capital expenditures when all of a sudden you have to pay $17,000 to put in a new air conditioning unit, which we just did. And right now there's no AC in the bar, and we've had a week with just having the doors open and trying to tell people, I'm really sorry about this. Those kind of things happen. If you can get to the point where you can basically break even and, have enough money in reserve to do the fixes that are necessary for a building that in a system that's 10 years old, good for you. But many people are not in that position and they're struggling and they're going to go under if they don't grow. So they've got to find somewhere to go with their business, or the employees don't have a job anymore. I mean, that's reality.
I don't disagree. There are a lot of people that are in that, and that's, I guess, where I'm coming from is you don't have to start out with that space, right? I didn't buy my house thinking I'm going to make more money in 10 years. I bought my house saying I make this much today. This is what my mortgage is today, and I feel like a lot of breweries didn't do that.
But Tim, I think you're right that a lot of breweries oversized and had, their eyes were too big for their stomachs or whatever you want to call it. Like they thought they were going to be more successful than they were, but no business opens profitable. No business.
I'm not. Yeah.
You were going on projections and saying 3 years from now will be profitable. And I think a lot of people said that and they're realizing they were wrong and they got to figure out a way to make it work.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that at all. I think I'm actually in agreement with you. I'm not saying that it's because everyone went too big or anyone did too much. I think they just expected too much, right? Like
Sure.
whenever you ask anyone, whenever you see anyone what the timeline to open up a brewery is, they say, cool, double it. It's going to take you longer. How much money is that going to cost
more? Yeah.
Cool. Double it, if not triple it. And I think that is the challenge. It's not necessarily that people oversized or they don't fit the market or whatever. It's that it was just a I don't even want to say poorly thought out. Like I'm not trying to like shit on people who opened up a brewery, but what I am saying is like
that's fair. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think the reality is that yeah, you're right. No business opens up profitable. A lot of people don't take a salary for the first 5, 6, 10, 20 years that they own a business. Absolutely, I get that. I'm not asking anyone to take a rocket to the moon on any of these things. I think there's a difference between
we need more rockets going to the moon.
Yeah. I think there's a difference though between incremental growth versus necessary growth, and I think too many people confuse the two, right? So a craft brewery,
I'm chomping at the bit to jump in here.
Okay, do it.
Like this is a thing I've definitely thought of before with our industry, but like it's really come to me in the last 20 minutes or so. Is we look like it's come back to me like craft breweries. What we are doing are so many different small little businesses all going on at the same fucking time, and that require certain skills sets that is more than just making fucking beer. Like you can have a brewer who owns the brewery, like makes amazing beer. I'm gonna throw my own boss out here on this. Like Matt had 15 years of brew pub experience brewing beer before he opened Copper Point. He didn't know how to run a business necessarily. Didn't know how to necessarily run a bar. Like because this is what we do. We're a manufacturing facility of a controlled substance that needs a sales team to sell beer. We are a bar. We are a logistics company. We are a warehousing company. Like there's so many different things going on inside of a brewery that not everyone necessarily knows all of how the fuck to do it, especially if you're pulling people in who off the street to work for cheap and you're like, okay, can you do this? All right, can you also do this at the same time? Luckily, some dumb fucks learn how to fucking do it. I'm one of those dumb fucks.
Yeah, but it also better our industry in the ass.
But yeah, but but at the same time, you know what? I've fucking learned a lot in this industry, and I know a fucking lot about this industry. And anyone would be fucking thrilled to have someone with experience in so many different aspects of the industry as I do. But like, here's where I want to concise this all down into what I think is the next big thing for this industry. And I think it is about, and what I'm going to do is kind of go off of like, not just, okay, we run THC, we run this, we run that. It's about finding a reason, giving a reason to people to come to your space. I think that's probably the most important thing. Like, to be honest with our people out there, like Copper Point, we're doing fucking great out in distribution right now. Like, way better than we probably should be. But it's in-house where stuff is hurting. And getting people to walk in your tap room doors and spend money and stay there for a little bit is tough. Like, people are putting in kitchens, people are putting in distilleries into their places now so that they can serve booze to try to keep people in there longer, or just to grab in a new people. There's a number of breweries down here who have gotten distillery licenses which allow them to just simply blend. Like, they can just buy in spirits and from somewhere else, and they can blend or bottle on premise. And
I mean,
if that's
90% of the spirits industry is all Nutri-Green spirits.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, I don't know how different states work, but Florida's distillery license doesn't mean that you actually have to distill anything. So like, I've seen a number of breweries who have gotten distillery licenses and have gins and vodkas and whiskeys now. They all of a sudden have a whiskey, and they've only been doing the distilling thing for like 2 months. But like, because they can buy it in a tote or whatever, and they can bottle it in their own facility, and it's theirs. Like, I give credit to people for doing that. I think that is important. I think that putting a kitchen into your place or having a permanent food truck fixture is important. I was just reading this week about Almanac. Like, do you guys know Almanac from the West Coast? They're completely transitioning to removing beer from their name and going off of being an experience. Like, they have changed their Alameda brewing facility to being called the Alameda Adventureland, and marketing themselves as a just family friendly place to come and eat and drink. Like, hey, we have food, we have drink, we make some of the beers. They have Russian River beers on tap, but they're like, we have sand pits, we have toys, we have games, we have all of this stuff for people to come of all ages and hang out here. Like, they're just being a destination. I think that stuff like that is really where the next big thing could be, is creating yourself as a spot to be at. And whether that you have people are drinking your beer, or people are drinking your spirits, or they're drinking something else that you carry. Like, tap rooms have to operate more like bars and restaurants now in order to stay, I think, competitive with the world. So I think that's a next big thing, is creating your brewery's tap room. And maybe tap room is a thing that we're going to be getting away from. Making it a thing that people want to come in and be a regular at because of food, drink, experience, vibes.
Well, and learning to accept what the market gives you. Let me ask you this. First thing you think of when I say Wrigley?
Field. I almost said gum.
I would just for fun was going to say gum.
Okay, cool. They started off as a soap company. Abercrombie and Fitch. First thing you think of?
New Kids on the Block had a bunch of hits.
Douchebags.
Started off as a sporting goods retailer. My point is these companies found their way and navigated, and I did not pick new brands. These are old brands, right?
Mm-hmm.
they found it's the whole. I think Pringle's whole intention was to make
They
tennis
were a tennis
balls.
ball.
Fucking cut them up. Uh,
More companies need to think like Pringles
but
or Mitch
or Mitch
Hedberg.
Hedberg.
yeah, I mean, but there is always a thing of like you never want to, put like you never put a date into a song because it immediately dates it, right? You never want to pigeonhole yourself too soon because some of the biggest restaurant. You guys remember when like a few years back IHOP jokingly changed their name to IHOB and everyone lost their goddamn mind. But the whole point was they were trying, perhaps desperately, but they were trying to say,
Failing.
yeah, we called ourselves In and House and a House of Pancakes. Whoopsie on our part, because now you think we only make pancakes.
Well, they think we only do breakfast.
Yeah. You'll only come for the breakfast day part, and we're losing out on that lunch shift.
Or if you're drunk and coming at 4:00 in the morning.
Yeah. We're missing out on all of those other day parts because we pigeonholed ourselves too much. So the idea of removing, like, I mentioned, so Lift Bridge here, I would.
They make bridges.
They do not. They make beer. They've been a very successful brewery here. Their focus really seems to be on like sodas and alcohol pops and things like that, and getting away from.
They should try bridges.
They should try bridges.
I have a bridge I could sell them. It's in Brooklyn.
Well, I've got some oceanfront property in Minnesota that they might be interested in as well. I think the thing is maybe what is next in craft beer is pivoting away from craft beer.
I think that has been the entire theme of this episode. And I think between Mike's incredible, kind of concise explanation of the industry and what he has seen and what you have just said, Tim, I think we've got it. I think the industry needs to move more towards experiences.
Listen to us. This is a blueprint.
I think the industry needs to move more towards experiences within their tap rooms, and in the production space has to diversify itself so that it has multiple revenue streams that can make it survive, especially in the smaller craft beer space where you don't own shelf space in every single grocery retailer. I think that's an important thing that people should be looking into. Not everyone's going to survive. Not everyone is going to be able to adapt, but I think that everyone should be having these meetings and talking about this now, whether they pull the trigger or not. And it's not going to work for everyone in everyone's space, but it has to be a conversation for a healthy business.
In the worlds of Wu-Tang Financial, you got to diversify your portfolio, son.
Did we just end on a good note there? Because Wu-Tang's for the children.
Until you ruined it by calling it out.
Sorry. That's what I do. All right. Does we just move on to last calls?
I think we should.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go into last calls, the time in the show where we give each other an unspecific amount of time to talk about whatever it is that we want, beverage related or not. The only rules are that it's uninterrupted, unopposed, unobjected. I'm going to start things off here because I want to do my last call as a little shout out to a former guest on the show. It was not too long ago that we had Joe Plouffe on the show from Hanging Hills Brewing in Connecticut. And he talked about his new project, and I was really thrilled that he actually name dropped his bar and restaurant that he is opening on the show before he, like, at least a month before he announced it to the world on his own social media. So I want to give a big shout out to the Upstate Lounge and Cafe in Hartford, Connecticut that he is trying to open. Go follow them on Instagram at the_upstate_lounge, because if you ever followed Hanging Hills, you know that Joe runs that business like it's him, because it is. And the bar is a lot of the same. It is complete transparency and openness about dealing with coding enforcement, dealing with cleaning up greasy ass fucking walls from like appliances that he's pulled out from a wall. And it's gross at points, but it's so fucking fun to see someone so enthusiastic about putting their everything into building something out. Seeing him have issues with his city over a kind of like a subleasing of, because he wanted to have a coffee shop running in the bar in the morning hours, and that was initially told to him by the city, oh, this is a cool thing, and now they're like, oh no, it's not. Like, so you got some drama, so okay, you have your popcorn stuff going on there, but like Joe is just one of the good people in the beer world, and seeing him want to open a corner bar restaurant that is part of his community, and like, I mean, it literally is a corner bar. Like, it's a beautiful fucking looking facade from the outside. Like, if I lived in that neighborhood, I would be fucking going there all the fucking time. Who knows? Maybe someday I'll live in Hartford. I don't know. But like, go check out the Upstate Lounge, not Lodge, Lounge, on Instagram, and follow along to Joe. Like, this is a fucking cool thing that he's trying to do, and I just want to send as many eyes there as possible, because if you go to Hartford in the future, you need to go there. Kevin?
I just want to mention, I think it was the last show where Tim's camera, I think I said it was something about like Apocalypse Now. Right now, he's looking like Queen in the Bohemian Rhapsody video, where it's just black in the background and there's like a head floating in there. And that was just
Galileo.
that was tickling me. So you
I did
wanted
just
to
kill a man.
Mama. Sorry. So you were giving a shout out to an entrepreneur that's been on this show. I'm going to give a shout out to a television show that I'm not sure anyone's ever heard of. It's a small, very indie production. It's called It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Almost no one's probably heard of this show, but I have rewatched that show probably 30 times, and it has become, at least for the last like 6 months, the thing I put on. So, full disclosure here, I'm in school full time, obviously doing the parenting thing. When my wife comes home that night, I do the bedtime thing with my son. I go for a run. I come back. I take a shower. It's like 11 o'clock at night. I have an hour before I go to bed. And I just want to veg out and mess around on my phone and do something else and just kind of be. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's a thing in the background that I just have, and I'm laughing with it, but at the same time, kind of sometimes also doing other things. Thank you very much, that show. It is endlessly hilarious. Every now and then I will kind of look up and realize, oh, that thing's happening in the background. That's really funny too. It's an episode I've seen 47 times and for some reason never got that joke in its full capacity because there was something subtle that I might not have been looking at the television. That's kind of a symptom of how we watch television now, where we're doing more than one thing at a time, which didn't happen 30 years ago. But it's just a great show, and I love it, and it gives me such comfort and joy in those little me times where I'm just disconnected from everything else. And in the interest of shouting out a newer show to me, Hacks, really, really funny show, female-led comedy, and It's fantastic. Michael Schur is attached to the show in some way, shape, or form. I love him. He's from The Good Place and Parks and Rec and everything that is good in the world. And my wife and I have started watching that show when we are up together watching a television show. And it's just great. The cast is fantastic. They're just people that you want to watch. They're just enjoyable human beings. The writing is fantastic. It's a uplifting show. So, two things, a show that's been on the air for 17 years, something like that, that you can pick up anytime, and a show that's been on the air for 4 years, both of which are giving me a lot of joy right now. So, thank you for those two shows.
Tim?
I've got one half last call and then one full one. The half one is last calls are bullshit because I would like to respond or interrupt or comment or oppose so many things that these guys say. Sometimes they're suckers. Sometimes they're a-holes and bring on their super intelligent wives to make us all look stupid whenever we try to make any salient point at the end of an episode. So I guess I love you guys, but fuck last calls because every time you talk, I really wish I could respond. So from now on, you guys are getting a lot of text messages during last calls. But no, the other thing that I wanted to say, and I know this is going to sound very weird in the middle of June. I think we're in like the middle day of the middle week of the middle year right now. Like we're in like dead center in the middle of the year or something like that. Yeah. Hey, uh, anyway, I think this is gonna sound weird. Don't forget to vote. Over the weekend, we saw a lot of protests around the country, and then my state was dealt a very unfortunate blow with some fucking batshit crazy asshole who I it's very 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 frustrating, and I'm not saying that voting would have fixed that. I'm not saying that voting would have turned down the rhetoric that helps breed awful people like that. But what I am saying is, in the midst of all of this chaos, we only have ourselves to blame. The fact that voter turnout in 2024 was so low compared to 2020 drives me up the wall. The fact that the number of people at our No Kings protest that probably didn't vote at all drives me up the wall. Political activism, belief that you play a role in your society and shaping the society that you want it to be. And as much as like, apologies to my parents who live in Iowa, so they probably are actually getting political ads for 2085 right now because you can't get in too early to get to the first state to make absolutely no decision that does anything whatsoever. But they're first. But the reality is one day a year has repercussions for years to come. So just keep that in mind the next time you're feeling apathetic. And I'm not asking everyone to be a zealous political pundit or whatever, but what I am asking people to understand is seeing what's happened, not only to the people in my state who were victims who I did not know, but to see a name on that hit list that I did know. I know that person personally. That fucked with my head. So, man. Yeah, middle of June in a non election year, I'm going to plug voting. That's totally normal. But seeing something that was the direct consequence just stirred my heart too much. So anyway, top that, fuckers.
Not going to try to.
Not at all.
Just the one simplest thing, there is no such thing as a non-voting year. Because there are things that go on in other states throughout the country that are very important to vote on in these off years.
We've got American Idol. We've got
sometimes I wonder, when, the people that are listening to the show, I believe that we
do they turn off before when we get to the last calls?
No, I think that all of us wear our hearts on our sleeves and are pretty transparent about where we are and what we believe in and what we care about. And I think it's important that we continue to do that. And Tim, I think that your last call in a non-election year speaks directly to the heart of yourself, but also to Mike and I. So I think it's completely appropriate, and I know there's no commentary on it, but I think that was great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, oh man, I called out last calls for not being able to respond. To both you fuckers responded.
Yep.
Oh,
because
so
when you initiate it, then it becomes it cuts it off, and then it's kind of like Beetlejuice, but also Candyman.
It's double
so
secret
I'm creating
probation.
It's double Jeopardy, and I'm creating my own "It's Always Sunny" monologue here.
As Greg Kin said, I lost on Jeopardy. So he said I lost in Jeopardy, and
I thought Weird Al said
Weird Al.
I lost on Jeopardy.
I lost on Jeopardy.
Our love's in Jeopardy,
baby.
Does anyone want to plug anything?
No, I think Tim plugged everything that's important.
Title of my sex tape.
Wow, that was good.
Sorry, it was. I've been watching a lot of Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
I thought you were going to say I've been watching a lot of sex tapes recently.
No, I want to. I have something I would like to plug. I have something I would like to plug. A former president of ours, a Republican, and Teddy Roosevelt believed very strongly in the importance of public lands. So please get out and visit a national park. That's my plug.
I'll piggyback right the fuck off of that. Go if you are in the state of Florida, go to Conservation Florida and support them. We recently just hosted them at our brewery for a Conservation on Tap event that I was super stoked on having them there for, to talk about ways that we ourselves as people can help preserve wild natural lands in our state that are very important to one of the most unique ecosystems in the world in Florida, and create wild ways for an endangered species like the Florida panther, who is the namesake for the now 2-time in a row Stanley Cup champions. Who would have fucking thought of that like 10 years ago? But
I live in the state of hockey. Florida's not the state of hockey.
I don't know. I don't know the fucking answer to this, man. I'm not a Panthers fan, but holy shit, like they got a fucking force. But I'm all behind natural lands, protected lands, our state parks. One thing that I feel like my information has absolutely been sold on. When I became a member of the National Audubon Society, I believe that they have absolutely sold my information to other nature-based foundations, because I have gotten stuff from National Parks Foundation, so many other Audubon societies for like, hey, can you become a member of our thing as well? And I'm actually considering a lot of them, because they're like, hey, you donate $25 and we'll send you a free backpack. Like, I like free stuff. Here's $25 for a backpack. So
I thought you were I thought you I thought you were gonna say, when I joined the National Audubon Society, I finally learned what Audubon means.
believe it or not, it's about birds here and not just fucking speeding cars. So yeah, support wild, support nature, support open.
I am a little sad that you guys, for the conservation, did not create a beer that was very limited release and people could only have 1 pint, because we were trying to conserve it for as long as possible. I'm just telling you, the next big thing is not selling people beer and watching your brand grow. I'm telling you,
Tim is full of ideas. I think he should just be a consultant.
We will donate $5 for every beer not sold.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on.
I'm telling you,
we're screwed. Oh, we're fucked.
No, but Pearl Clutcher Oyster Stout is going to absolutely do well. So please at least do that.
I should have looked that up on Untapped.
There's probably 17 beers named that. So
yeah. Thank you everyone once again for joining us. If you want to support this weird, wild adventure that we call a podcast, go to our website, unitedwedrink.com, where we have the Brands We Love page. And if you go and purchase some stuff from there, we get a little kickback on it. And all it does is help cut down on hosting costs for us. And we also have a web store, unitedwedrink.com/store, with shirts, buttons, stickers, totes, stickers, and I think I said stickers twice, but I don't care. Buy stickers twice. That again goes towards paying for hosting costs for this show. You can follow us on basically the only places that we're actually active on anymore are Blue Sky and Instagram and somewhat Facebook. If you were on the Threads thing, fuck that place. It's just a fucking AI fucking farm at this point in time. But we are on those
an
other
Angel
places.
Fire page. Can we plug the Angel Fire page?
Sure. Do you
or GeoCities?
Oh, there we go. GeoCities. Yeah. But follow us on those places at United We Drink or United We Drink Pod, depending on the place. Go to the website. It's all there. UnitedWeDrink.com. Other than that, we'll be back in a couple weeks with another new episode. Thank you, everyone, once again. And to all of you, happy Boom Boom Day, because that'll happen, I think, by the time the next episode comes out. America. Cheers.
We turned into a morning show zoo.